Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Optimum webinar, Come Fly with Me, a trip around the world, investigating foreign death claims. I'm Jill Thompson, and I'm the Director of Underwriting. I'll be the moderator today. And then, let's see here. We need to stop sharing this screen. Today, everyone will be muted for the seminar. And if there are any questions, please direct them to the Q&A chat option. If you raise your hand, it really, they'll pretty much direct you to the question and answer section. So make sure you're answering your questions in the question and answer section. Michelle said that we could interrupt and ask her questions as we're progressing. If we don't get to all the questions, there is an email, info.us@optimumre.com, that you can send your questions to, and she will get back to you guys as soon as possible. Also, there will be a survey at the end, and that is very helpful for us to going forward to make sure that we have the topics that you want to hear. You can critique Michelle and I, but please be very, very gentle. Michelle and I are new at this, so we appreciate your gentle criticism if you have any. And then, like I said, at the end of the survey, please do fill out that survey. I am going to introduce our lovely speaker now. Michell McAllister is the director. The manager of the claims department. She has her FLMI, the FLHC, her AALU, almost got that FALU, and ARA. She attended the University of Nevada at Las Vegas and studied hotel administration and food and beverage management. She's been working at Optimum Re for 10 years and in the life insurance industry for 13 years. Some very fun facts. She was born and raised in Las Vegas, but she absolutely does not gamble. And she actually stumbled across this career in life insurance. She started at a job that she was supposed to only do it for 2 weeks, just answering claim calls. And then when the 2 weeks were up, the manager's like, "You are great at this." And she's like, "Oh, this is nothing." This is nothing compared to getting yelled at in your face at 2 o'clock in the morning at a casino. So I can handle somebody yelling at me over the phone. So she's a tough cookie. She knows what she's talking about. So without further ado, Michelle.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jill. Thank you to all of the attendees. I appreciate everyone who has decided to join us this morning. This is my first time hosting a webinar for Optimum Re, and I'm really excited to be here. I just want to give you 2 quick disclosures. The information in this presentation is based on U.S. business. I've only ever worked in the United States, and I don't know much about what goes on in other countries at the insurance companies, but I'm sure for this particular subject that we're going to cover today, the practical steps and the best practices will be pretty much the same. A foreign country is a foreign country, no matter what country it is, if it's not the country you live in. The second thing I need to let you know is that the content of this presentation is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to make any collective claim decisions or to make any claim decisions for a direct carrier. Those decisions are the responsibility of the direct carrier, and each claim is unique and should be adjudicated on its own merits. So without further ado, we'll get started. We're going to take a trip around the world and investigate some foreign death claims. I hope you like to travel, because off we go. All right. So on today's agenda, I want to welcome you aboard Investigation Airlines. We're going to depart at the receipt of a foreign death claim, and we're going to arrive at a claims decision. We're going to talk about the thing about foreign death claims. We are going to go through some cautionary items for your claims file, some things that you need to be aware and be aware of. We're going to talk about some red flags that you can find in your claim file. We're going to talk about some investigation techniques that you can employ to make sure that you are doing all that you can do to make sure that you have a legitimate claim. We're going to talk about validation of foreign death documents, getting some assistance with investigations, communication with your clients, and then we'll go through some case studies and recap the presentation. So off we go. All right. So the thing about foreign death claims is they are challenging to adjudicate. Without leaving your desk in whatever city and state you are in the United States, a claims professional must not only obtain, but authenticate documents from a foreign country that you may be familiar with, or you may have never even heard of the country. So it's a big world out there, and there's lots of countries, lots of places to go and visit, lots of places to go and die. So where do we start as a claims examiner? Well, let's take a trip. First things first, we want you to buckle up because this may be a bumpy ride. Remember, foreign death claims are challenging. All right, so the first thing that we have to do at our departure is get some documents from our beneficiary. And there are many documents that the beneficiary should have some type of access to because they usually are family or friend or close friend of the insured person that is dead. And they usually can obtain these documents. So when you receive notification of the foreign death claim, ask for these documents along with the normal documents that you require. One of the most important documents is a foreign death questionnaire. This form you could use in place of a beneficiary statement, possibly, if your company is okay with that. But it's very good to get this statement from the beneficiary. You'll want copies of the insured's identification, so you can verify that the insured was in the US, or if they don't have a driver's license or ID card from the US, maybe you'll get a visa that says they were a resident alien, or that they had a work visa here, something that to establish that at some point, especially at the time of the application, your insured was in the United States. You want to get medical records definitely surrounding the death. So you'll want that information from the beneficiary. That's something that you'll want to put on your foreign death questionnaire. You want color copies of the ID, passports, and all the stamps in the passports, so that you can, as best you can, see if there's a stamp that shows the deceased entered the country at a time on or around the time of their death. And did they travel, while they were there, and were they in that country when they died? Ask for original documents and send them back when you're done reviewing the claim. Promise the beneficiary that you'll send them back at the completion of the claim. Original documents are always better, always easier for us to take a look at, and versus a photocopy of it. Because when you have a photocopy, things blur, you're not sure if this is a real stamp, and things like that. Travel itineraries, very important. One of the things that we noticed in the last 2 years was travel during times when we thought possibly this person shouldn't have been traveling, because there were some COVID restrictions in place and a lot of countries had closed up and flights weren't going out to different countries and things like that. So you want to get a travel itinerary. Also, you want to make sure that travel itinerary timeline makes sense, that they traveled to that country, got in that country. It'll let you know if they planned on coming back, or if it was just a one-way thing, they were leaving and never coming back again. Get receipts from the funeral home, from the mortuary, from the crematorium, from the company that may ship or transport the body back to the United States. You want to get receipts. All of those things help substantiate that the person died outside of the country and that they are actually dead. And getting more of these things helps to complete your claim file, because as you'll see in the next slide, what you'll be looking for is any inconsistency. So a form death questionnaire is a vital tool for a claims examiner. It is, in essence, the beneficiary's statement of events that took place on or around the time of the death of the insured. And you have it in writing, you have them sign it, and then you can go through the supporting documents to make sure whatever your beneficiary said took place, you can substantiate with supporting documents that we talked about on the previous slide, the death certificate, the travel itinerary, things like that. And it also can ask additional questions about the reason for travel, things like that. So if your company doesn't already practice sending out form death questionnaires when they have a form death claim, I would highly recommend that you do. They are, like I said, a valuable piece of information. Your beneficiary is usually the best source of information, and it allows you to ask a plethora of questions so that you can substantiate your death. Because at the end of the goal of examining this claim is to establish proof that our insured has passed away. So if you would like a copy of an example of a form death questionnaire, you can email me at the Optimum inbox, or contact anyone you know here at the company, and I'll send you that questionnaire. That's a vital piece of information for these type of claims. Okay, so now we've got our documents, and there's some things that we need to keep in mind as we begin to review the documents. We want to know, where did the death occur? Did it happen in what we call a high-risk country? Those are countries where—
Michelle, just
Yes?
real quick, can you give, like, I guess, a little bit more on specifics on what would be on the, like, specific questions on the death questionnaire?
Oh, absolutely. So on a death claim questionnaire, you would want you want to know when the insured traveled, who was the insured with when they traveled, where did they go? Did they go straight to the country where the death occurred, or were they taking a tour? You can ask for names of medical facilities where the insured may have been treated. You definitely want a description of the events that took place around the time of death. You can ask what doctors treated the insured, if they were treated, what police officials were involved, if police had to come to validate the death, or you can also ask for names of hotels, addresses where the insured stayed. All that gives you more information in case you have to do some additional investigation. That gives you places to start investigating, people to contact, places to see, and things like that. So again, I can send you an example. We have a form death questionnaire here at Optimum Re. It's about 7 pages long, so it didn't really fit into my slides, but I can send you. Please send the email to the info@Optimum US email address, and I will get you a copy of that example questionnaire that we had, and then you can take it and add to it, or make it more specific to your needs. It is definitely a valuable document for these claims. So any more questions? Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. All right. So when we're looking at the documents, we want to be aware that foreign death claims have a extremely high potential for fraudulent activity. So we have to be vigilant. So we want to have these things in mind when we're looking at the documents for a foreign death claim. We want to know if the death occurred in a high-risk country. And there's a list of countries that the potential for fraud is much greater than in other countries. Maybe these countries don't document very well, or their documents are easy to counterfeit, or if it's a poor type country, people may be, officials may be able to be bribed or something like that. So you want to be aware of these high-risk countries. Be aware of body substitution. That's something that fraudsters like to do. And the insured doesn't really want to die, but we want to file a claim. So we'll substitute a body. They may dig up a body out of a grave. We've seen claims like that. They may take a body out of the morgue, or perhaps the claim is for Uncle Joe, but Uncle Joe's dad died, and they want to substitute that because Uncle Joe's dad didn't have life insurance, and so we'll just substitute the body. Another thing that to be cautious of is accidental deaths. That is also an avenue for body substitutions, getting in car crashes, airplane crashes, disappearances, things like that, where car crash and a fire happens, it's difficult to identify the body, things like that. So you want to be aware of those accidental deaths and make sure that you get proper documentation from the proper authorities in that country, documenting the accident and what took place and who was there when it took place. With all of the new technology that we have out in the world now, and these highly technical printers that can, duplicate official looking documents, synthetic identity is something that is becoming more and more prevalent. This is just a person where you can go on the dark web or in different places and purchase a whole profile of someone who may or may not even exist, or someone who died a long time ago. So we have to be careful of that. Also, a falsified death. Is your insured really dead? Or are these documents just saying that the person is dead, but he or she is still alive, and submitting counterfeit documents to you? Again, you want to get original documents when possible. Request the original documents, promise to send them back to the beneficiary. Beneficiaries tend not to want to give up the original death certificate because they only have one or something like that. Promise to send it back, FedEx it back to them, but let them know that you need to see the original documents. Copies are okay, but we lose the ability to touch, see, feel. Does this look like something that may be authentic? Because remember, you may be looking at a document from a country that you've never even heard of. So we have no idea what a death certificate from ABC country would look like, or ABC city in ABC country. We have no idea what that should look like. Should it be typed? Should it be handwritten? Will it be in English, or is it in their native language only? So get original documents, and later on you'll see that one of the best practices is do research. We're going to do a lot of research with these claims.
Michelle,
Okay.
do you have, oh, there it is, never mind.
Yes, I do. I have a list of these high-risk countries. So at Optimum Re, when we examine a claim, we see that it's a foreign death. Usually this is the first list that the claims analyst will pull out. Okay, let me see if this is a high-risk country. That puts us on alert to be really diligent when we're going through the documents. Not sure exactly why these particular countries have an increased risk for filing fraudulent claims, but they do. There's been studies, gathering of information on fraudulent claims, and they tend to come from these countries. So you'll want to pay special attention when you receive a claim from these countries. But still, just because the country is not listed on this list doesn't mean you don't have a fraudulent claim in front of you. They can come from anywhere. But again, these are the high-risk companies. All right, now there are some red flags that we can get when we have our claim file, especially when it's complete. I'm going to skip down almost to the bottom here, because one of the most prevalent or the reddest flag for me is when the beneficiary gives me a claims package that is tied up with a bow. They gave me everything I needed without me even having to ask. That's a huge red flag for me, that this person knows what an insurance company is going to ask for, gives it to them up front so that you don't ask any questions, and expects payment very quickly. But other things to look at is the insured new to the U.S. or spent little time in the U.S. You want to know, did the insured travel to the U.S. just to get a $1 million policy with ABC company and then went home? Did the insured ever enter the United States? That's a problem, because your particular company may or may not be able to issue a policy. And then we have to discuss whether or not the policy is actually valid. Are the documents you received in English? And if they are, should they be in English? There are some countries, for example, the Philippines, where English is taught in elementary school as a second language. So when you see medical records and death certificates and things like that, they'll be in English. But you want to find those things out. Should it be in English? Is English spoken in that country regularly? Or should the documents come in the native language to that country? If you have documents that come in the native language and they come with a translation from the beneficiary, sometimes beneficiaries will type out the translation themselves, or they'll get someone else to translate it and put a stamp on it that they certify that this is an authentic translation. That's all good and well, but you'll want to get your own independent source of translation so that you can make sure that the information you are looking at, or the information on this document, is everything that you need to verify the death and it makes sense. If you get inconsistent or vague information, that is a red flag. An incomplete foreign death questionnaire is a red flag. The beneficiary, for the most part, should know what took place around the death of the insured. They should know when the insured traveled, or be able to, at least at a minimum, find out if they have to find out from somebody else. They should be able to get a hold of the documents, like the deceased passport, perhaps their travel itinerary, because they're getting into their emails, or they have access to the documents in the deceased house in the United States. So if it's inconsistent or vague, that tends to make us wonder if they're trying to hide something from us. So if you have inconsistent and vague information, ask questions of your beneficiary. Again, the translation submitted by the beneficiary, you want to get your own independent translation done so that you can make sure that what the information on whatever document you're reading is, you're being able to read it as it is. And if the beneficiary resides abroad, okay, that's not impossible, but it makes it a little bit more difficult, because now you have to investigate, did the insured died in this country and perhaps the beneficiary lives over here, and do I have the correct beneficiary? Is this beneficiary who they're supposed to be? Things like that. So you have to take a deeper dive. If you have a beneficiary that resides abroad, that is a red flag for possible fraud going on. Cremation in a foreign country or disposition contrary to local customs. Google is my best friend. All the time, I will look up if I see that a person was buried, or perhaps sent down a river, or however the disposition of the body was taken care of, if you're not familiar with that country, use Google or other resources that you may have to see what is the customary way that people have funerals or deal with the disposition of the body of their loved ones after death. Again, the abundance of documents, especially if you didn't ask for them. Most people just don't know what you're going to need for a foreign death. Most beneficiaries will think you just, they can call you up and say, oh, they died in France, and I'm going to submit the death of a US citizen abroad. And that's all the information that you need. Most people, unless they're in the business, don't know what you need for a death, let alone what you need for a foreign death claim. So be careful of those things. Was a one-way ticket purchased? That's possible red flag, because maybe the insured left with the intention to file a fraudulent claim. They left knowing that in this particular country, documents can be bought, and I'm not ever going to come back to the United States. So I'm going to get this money from the insurance company, and I'm going to live free on the beach somewhere. So purchase of a one-way ticket, something you want to take a look into. And again, going back to the foreign death questionnaire, you can ask the reason for travel. Were they going home because they retired? Purchase of a one-way ticket would make sense then. Or were they going on vacation? And if they were, why a one-way ticket? Why weren't you coming back? Were you employed? If they're employed in the United States, they should be coming back. No travel companions. Some people travel alone, and that's fine. But for the most part, people tend to travel with somebody. That travel companion is a good source of information. If there's no travel companions, it's a red flag, because again, then you don't have a witness, to a potential witness, I should say, to what happened around the time of the insured's death, or where did the insured go? What hospital did they go to? That travel companion is a great source of information. If they have no travel companion, it may be because they don't want to bring anybody else into the crime that they're about to commit by filing a fraudulent claim. So these are some red flags to look for once you receive your death claim file. You want to be aware of these things. Again, not all claims are fraudulent. We shouldn't go into reviewing a claim thinking this is fraudulent. We just want to go into it with an open mind and a mindset on verifying the consistency and authenticity of the information and documents that you've received.
Michelle, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So your experience as a claims specialist adjudicating death claims in foreign countries, do you see that underwriters should have done better risk assessment? If so, could you please share some of the critical information that may be useful for underwriters to look for before it becomes a claim?
I have seen claims where there was some potential missteps at underwriting that maybe could have prevented a claim. We had a claim not very long ago where the insured never lived in the United States. And on the application, the Social Security number didn't look like a real Social Security number. It was a series of numbers, all the same number. And that wasn't questioned. Sometimes on applications, it will ask for ID, what state is the ID or what type of ID is it? And you'll see that that is either blank or it doesn't have valid information there. So using the application and looking at the information, making sure that the information on the application makes sense is one of the things that underwriters can do to help prevent these types of claims. If the person is from another country, are they in the United States legally? Running the MIB check, the criminal background check, and paying attention to the information that is received at underwriting are all good practices. something that underwriters ordinarily do, whether or not the person, is a U.S. citizen or became a U.S. citizen or not. Those are all good practices, is to validate the information that is on the application. Unfortunately, the tele apps and the internet apps can cause a hindrance to being able to do that. And there's no way for an underwriter to know whether or not this insured was in the United States, but having systems in place that can verify IP addresses, things like that, just in case the IP address isn't in the United States, that would be a big hint that probably you're going to get a fraudulent claim from somebody. And also, that would keep you from issuing a policy in a place where your company is not authorized to do business. So we have seen claims like that. And we've had to, take a lot of time investigating and talking to legal counsel and things like that to figure out whether or not the claim could be paid, because you have to figure out if the policy was valid in the first place. So just paying a lot of attention to what's on the application will help tremendously in helping to prevent foreign death fraud. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So we can go over some investigation techniques now. Again, when you're looking at these claims, you want to take a two-track approach. And this is where underwriting may come in. If you got medical records, or if you obtained a paramed from the insured at the time of underwriting, those are your stateside documents. You can validate whether a person was in the United States by asking, did this person see a doctor in the United States? And perhaps requesting medical records, or a simple, was this person ever treated at your facility? Question faxed over to the doctor's office and returned, and then you also have to do your investigating in the foreign country. And that's the difficult part, because sometimes to investigate the death in a foreign country, you're going to need somebody to be boots on the ground and go on over there and take a look at everything that was submitted. If the insured went into a hospital, does a hospital exist? Yes, that's something that an examiner can look at on Google, and you can see if it exists, or if it never existed. We've run into claims like that, where they'll say they were staying at a particular hotel, or they were treated in a particular medical facility, and we go and Google that or try and look it up on the internet, and we can't find that facility. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it's a hint that maybe we need an investigator to go and see. Always best if you can see. Hiring an investigator does cost money, and we want to make sure that claims are adjudicated thoroughly, but that is also cost effective for the company. So if you do need to hire an investigator, hire a reliable one, one that has proven results. They go and they do a thorough investigation. They visit every place that where the insured lived, where the insured may have been treated for medical conditions. They talk to family members. They talk to neighbors. They took pictures of maybe grave sites, or sometimes the funeral home will have things there from when the funeral took place, or they'll get there around the time of the funeral if the funeral is delayed a little bit. And they'll be able to talk to people at the funeral or take pictures of some of the items at the funeral. We've even seen pictures of the actual deceased person at a funeral in some of our files. So an investigator is a really good way to authenticate the death of your insured, that there was a death, and that proper steps were taken. Investigators tend to also be very well versed in the custom and practices of the countries that they go to, so they know if cremation is something that's not normally done in this, and then the information that you have shows that the person was cremated, they can find out that kind of thing for you. They can talk to a lot of people, and sometimes people tell on themselves. Quite often they do. You know, you'll get a neighbor that say, "Oh, I saw this person travel on this day," or you know, this person isn't dead. They went off to wherever. Sometimes, so having that investigator there to do interviews, put the boots on the ground, go to the different places, validate documents. Did this official issue this document? Was this the doctor's signature? Did you sign this? Those things, taking the death certificate that was received to the place, whatever government place issues death certificates, and asking, is this an authentic document? Do you have it in your registry? Things like that an investigator can do for you. And it is a tremendous relief when you have someone there who can, you know, talk to the people and make sure that the documents that you have are not only authentic, but they weren't acquired fraudulently. Investigators, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I have a question. How often do you see insurers engaging in third-party investigator to either help validate documents or conduct an on-site interview?
When an investigation, I have not ever seen an investigation done where they didn't do the interviews and go to the on-site, you know, do on-site visits to the different places mentioned in the claim file. We see these investigations, we tend to see them more when there's higher face value, dollar amounts. Some companies establish a threshold. If the face amount is over 50,000, they're automatically going to employ a investigation company. Or for a $5,000 claim, they may rely on the analyst to do the sort of boots on the ground research that they can do from their desk. So I would say about 40 to 50% of the claims, we see an investigation. And then definitely for the smaller face amount policies, we don't see it as much. You see the analyst or the examiner at the seating company doing the most of the work.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. So again, send a form death questionnaire. Please, if you would like a copy of our form death questionnaire, I want to say that again, please let me know and I'll get one over to you. They are a valuable tool. Again, people sometimes just tell on themselves without thinking. So that form death questionnaire helps you to substantiate the information in the documents. If on the form death questionnaire, the beneficiary tells you that the deceased person left in September, and you receive a airline ticket that shows that the person didn't leave till December or they left in February, you want to ask the beneficiary the reason for the inconsistencies and get more information. So the form death questionnaire, that statement from the beneficiary, is really important to your file. Highly recommend that that's done every time you receive a form death claim, and it's not something that you have to hire anybody to do, and it is really easy. The beneficiary is going to contact you, so really easy to, if you have questions about the form death questionnaire, if it's not completely filled out, to go back and ask the beneficiary those questions. Sometimes if you can, try and determine if the insured had coverages with other companies. Companies can sometimes share what information they can to help validate the authenticity and the validity of the claim that you have. We have seen companies that maybe on the application, they said that they had blah, blah, blah policy at ABC company, and okay, well, I know a claims analyst over there. This insured passed away and we received notification and they said they had a policy with you. Have you received any information? Maybe you're missing something from your file or a piece of information from your file that they may be able to help you with. Companies can collaborate and work together and share investigation costs, things like that, so that you both companies or multiple companies can do the best work they can to validate the claim and make sure that they're paying a payable claim. Again, obtaining the third-party translations, also going with that, obtaining medical records, not from the beneficiary, but from the actual facility where they were treated. Get them yourself so that you can be sure that you're getting the complete file and that you're getting all of the right information, that nothing has been altered or falsified in your file. The third-party translations, you want to know exactly what that document says, because there may be something on that document, because you aren't familiar with that foreign language, that would lead you to believe that something's terribly wrong. Maybe the date of death is way off, or the name isn't even right. And if it isn't written in English, you don't know. If the beneficiary is doing something fraudulent and they provide the translation for you, well, of course, the translation that you're going to get is going to say what it needs the beneficiary to say. Gather information regarding the burial. Funny story, this is a side note. Monica and myself were looking at a claim, not a foreign death claim, but just a claim where we were a little suspicious that perhaps this insured didn't die. We actually went out, and the person was buried in a local cemetery. So we actually went out and visited that cemetery. We wanted to see, is this person's name on the headstone? Is there a grave there for this person? So we actually went out and visited. So your investigators can do that if they travel, but if you can't travel, you'll want to get those receipts from the funeral home. They had to do something with the body. So you want to get the receipts from the funeral home, the mortuary certificates, the crematorium receipts, things like that, to make sure that the body was disposed of and you have another person verifying that this is the person who I cremated, or this is the person who my company held a funeral for. This is the person. That helps to validate all of those things that we're looking for, make sure there was no body substitution, to make sure that there was actually a death that occurred. If you can't get any funeral or burial information, ask your beneficiary some questions, because I don't know of too many places that don't do some type of funeral. You can't just dispose of human remains in most places without some official company involved. Burial versus cremation. Cremation is problematic if once done, you're not sure you have the right person, because once they're cremated, they're gone. So is cremation, again, customary in the country that you received, or do they normally bury their dead? Or is there a cemetery? If they give you on your foreign death questionnaire, you can ask the name of the cemetery. Look that cemetery up and see if it exists. Look the funeral home up. Look to see if there's a obituary for this person on the funeral home's website. Sometimes there is. And you can also find out if the funeral home exists. Is it a real funeral home? Sometimes you see pictures. We've seen pictures of funeral homes in a file that look like it's a house. And you're like, is that really a funeral home? Things like that, which will lead you back somewhere else. So you can ask some more questions, or maybe get an investigator involved if you're really questioning things. You have a question, Jill?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So do you know what the top 5 causes of death where claims were filed outside of the US, in Canada and the US?
No, I couldn't say I know what the top 5 deaths are. They vary just like anything else. Sometimes it's natural causes. The person is older, they go over to their home country, maybe to retire or just visit family, and they die from natural causes. or they may get in car accidents. We do see that a lot. That's just something that we pay more attention to.
There've been a lot
Disabilities.
more COVID these days.
Yes, we do get COVID. But I wouldn't say we get any more COVID on the foreign death claims than we do on the claims in the US. COVID is everywhere. So we get that. The thing about COVID is that's helpful to a foreign death investigation is that the person usually has gone to a hospital and we're able to obtain medical records to help substantiate that this person went to the hospital, they have this disease. So I couldn't say what the top 5 are. They do vary. And they're about the same things that you would see on any other claim, from cancer to some type of accidental death.
Okay. And then do you know approximately the percentage of foreign death claims that turn out to be fraudulent?
Far less than are valid, as far as we know. There are many times when you get all the information that you can get for a foreign death investigation, you even have an investigator go over there and they get all the information that they can get, and you're still not really sure about the claim. So in the United States insurance business, nobody really wants to get into court over a claim. So tie goes to the runner. You don't have enough information, you pay. So we pay far more than we deny. We see more what we believe are valid claims, far more than a fraudulent claim. Fraudulent claims, I would estimate maybe 2 to 5% that we know of. Again, we could have all this stuff, have a fraudulent claim and just not be able to prove it.
And then wondering if the documents are requested of the beneficiary as a list at the onset of the claim, or is it a back and forth process with respect to each additional document? So is that one, the form that you list, do you kind of list on that form when you ask them to fill out what all you're going to ask for? Back and forth kind of thing.
I would definitely ask for, if not, now I'm not saying that you need to get all of those documents from the beneficiary, but I would definitely ask up front for, if not all, most of those documents, whatever they have access to. You know, you could give them the list of documents and anything else that you feel may be pertinent to your claim. And, you know, say you don't have to send everything, but could you send what you have that's available that is on this list? That way you have as much information at the start of the claim as you need. It's more efficient. You don't want to keep calling the beneficiary back, you know, and saying, oh, can you send this document now? And can you send this document now? Ask for it up front. And then that way, the only time you may need to contact the beneficiary is if, you know, you have questions about what you received, if something is inconsistent about what you received. Beneficiaries tend to want claims paid quickly. Like, you know, I learned very quickly, they can get very angry with you and nasty on the phone. And so ask for as much as you can up front. And also, as you'll see in a couple slides, one of the things I highly recommend is to set the beneficiary's expectations for how long it will take your company to review a foreign death claim. And, you know, you can give them a high level summary of why, because we have to validate that the documents are authentic, not that, you know, put it in a way where you're not going to make them angry because they think that they're trying to file a fraudulent claim. But set their expectations. These claims do take a little bit longer. And, you know, if your company has a reinsurance company involved and the reinsurance opinion is required before you can admit any liability, set your client's expectations up front so that they know this isn't going to be a 2-day process, or it might not even be a 2-week process. It may take a little bit longer. If I have to request medical records from a hospital in Seoul, Korea, it may take me a while to get those. So set their expectations, ask for as much information up front as you can, and then proceed with your claim.
That's all the questions. And then it's about 10 minutes till, so probably any more questions we'll just send to me, and we'll either see what we can do at the end or send them to info at info@optimumre.com. And I
Okay.
did put that email address in the chat if people want to do that for like the forms or anything like that.
Absolutely. Okay. And this is recorded also. Will we make the recording available?
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, and then
that's part of my spiel at the end. So yes.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so these are, some of your best practices. The name and address of the funeral home. That's something you want on your foreign death questionnaire. Name and address of the funeral director, the person performing the burial service, repatriation documents. That's bringing the body back home to the United States. Pay attention to COVID travel restrictions. If they were traveling in March of 2020, they may not have really been traveling. Because remember, the United States was basically shut down for a few months, at least the first few months of COVID. We couldn't even travel, too far within the United States, let alone getting out of the country. So be aware of those things. We'll go through a case study really quick. Let's see if we can get through these really quick. So here's a case study. We have a 400,000 contestable claims on a 31-year-old female. Manner of death listed on the death certificate was likely accident, cause likely drowning. The application for your underwriters was digitally signed 35 days prior to the reported death. Okay, so now not only is it a foreign death, it's contestable. The beneficiary is the sister, which that comes into question the insurable interest. Why is the sister the beneficiary? So specifics, according to the coroner, the insured drowned, sheltering from a hurricane. The beneficiary gave a sworn statement and said that the insured left Fort Lauderdale to visit her mother. Again, this will be on your questionnaire form, in the Bahamas, and she never heard from her again. The missing persons report was filed. No DNA was given by the sister so that they could verify if they found a body that this was the person's, or no, or the mother could give DNA. No, but no DNA was ever given so that they could verify if they found a body that they couldn't identify. And there was a document that said the court stated there can be no doubt that Jane Doe is in fact deceased. Well, we don't know. Jane Doe was never found. The death certificate was issued 18 months after the hurricane. So our concerns were, first, it was foreign death. So we don't know the laws there. And we have to find out what the laws there are about. When can you issue a death certificate on a missing person? A disappearance. What easier way is there to initiate a fraudulent claim than to not have the person's body available and not be able to provide all of those proofs of death that you normally need? And then it was contestable. So we need to find out, does she really exist? So the investigation is outsourced, boots on the ground. Great. The Bahamas has a 7-year missing person statute, but due to the hurricane's devastation, the coroner officially declared 22 people dead, including the insured. Was he allowed to do that? Not sure. The beneficiary's boyfriend confirmed that she had only one sibling, David. Remember, the beneficiary was a sister, but she had only had one sibling, David, but she claimed to be the sister of the deceased, the beneficiary. The employer, the beneficiary's boyfriend, confirmed the insured worked at his business, but the investigator went there and confirmed that the business was inactive and there was no employment records. So now we're wondering, does she exist? Is this why she had to disappear? Because she never existed in the first place. Proof of identity on the insured was never received. No passport received, no copy of a driver's license, no copy of a visa, no nothing. Most grown people have some proof of their identity. So the findings on this particular case, the beneficiary was not who she claimed to be, and it appears that she orchestrated this scheme from the start. Okay, so paramedics, medical records at application, all of that helps underwriters. That helps us prevent this, at least establish that there was a real person there. The beneficiary was a person reported along with her son missing 2 years prior to the policy being issued. So I wonder what the courts were thinking, and the beneficiary was using an alias. See if you can verify the identity of your beneficiary. The insured had a synthetic identity. This was a made-up person. And by the way, Bahamas is not on that list of high-risk countries. So again, you can get a fraudulent claim from anywhere. They come from right here in the United States quite often, so be careful. And verify inconsistencies. The interviews with the family, neighbors, friends, all of that stuff is really important because they tell you some things that will let you know that something is wrong with the claim that you have. Okay, I have 3 minutes here. So what is the best way to verify legitimacy on a foreign death certificate or registration document? You want to verify the claimed event, not just the document. You want to verify that the document is authentic, and the investigator going to that particular government entity that issues those things is the best way we can do that. They can say it's valid, it's registered, this is the right document, this is the right signature, etc. Not always possible to deal with your claims, but it is the best way to do it. Again, the internet is also a good source of information, but remember that the internet is also a good source to obtain these documents to falsify. Now we've got 3 minutes. Do we have time to go through this case study? But I see there's a question. No, Jill?
Yes. The Evite indicated this webinar was going to go to 11:30. Is that still accurate? What?
I thought so, but you just told me at 10
I'm
minutes.
sorry. It's my fault.
Okay.
It's still 11:30.
It's 11:30. Okay. So we can slow down a little bit and I can take
One
some more questions.
One more question though. Once you
Okay.
establish it is a fraudulent claim, how do you deny it? Do you file charges?
I've never seen a company, any of our clients, file charges on a fraudulent claim. Most of the time it's just denied. The facts are listed and usually the beneficiary tends to go away. Of course, the insurance company at its own discretion and with its advice from its legal department could file suit or they could press charges for the filing of a fraudulent claim. If they happen to pay a claim and find out later that it's fraudulent, you might bring suit for damages against the beneficiary and try to recoup your losses. So it is a possibility. In my own experience, I've never seen that before. Usually they just write a letter to the beneficiary, tell them the facts of the case, and the beneficiary tends to go away so that they don't get in trouble. So we'll go on to case study number 22. This was a $15,000 non-contestable claim on an 81-year-old man. Again, these causes of death can be anything. We had an accident in the Bahamas, now we're here. Natural, due to sepsis, died in Mexico. Mexico is a high-risk country. The application digitally signed in February 2019. These are like the claims examiner's worst nightmares, these digitally signed applications, because it's so difficult for us to verify who actually signed the document. Is it the insured, or is it just the one person doing something for somebody who doesn't exist? The beneficiary was a daughter. When the beneficiary reported the death, she admitted that the insured had never traveled to the United States. And she also admitted to signing the name of her father as the insured on the application. As I said, when you talk to beneficiaries or when you ask them for a statement on a foreign death questionnaire, sometimes they tell on themselves. So ask the question and see what see what answer you get. He did not know about the insurance on his life. That's not good. That is a terrible practice. The implications of that, we all know, can be numerous. On the first page of the application, it reads that all applicants must permanently reside in the United States. So the claims disposition, is it payable or not? We have several questions here. First, you have the fraudulent submission of an application by the daughter. You can't put insurance on somebody who isn't aware of the insurance. And then it was issued outside of the United States. So we had to consider whether or not this company legally could issue an insurance contract in Mexico. If they have no rights to issue insurance in Mexico, was the policy contract valid in the first place? You have to ask all these questions. So now you may get investigators involved, not only investigators, but your legal department needs to get involved, because we need answers to these questions to know how to handle the claim. And the writing of a denial letter is very important in all cases, but you want to make sure you have, everything sewed up with quick stitch and a tight bow when you have admission of fraud and these kinds of problems with a foreign claim. So on that particular claim, we left it up to the seating to decide whether or not this policy was the contract was even valid. Definitely the claim was not payable. It was up to the seating whether or not they were going to file charges against the daughter for doing this. And we did not participate in payment of this claim. And the seating company's legal department had to take over this case from that point. But then another thing that needs to be considered is, would the company be stopped from denying this claim based on any information they had at underwriting, or any information that they had that this person probably wasn't in the United States? Did they give a foreign? We've seen applications where there is a foreign address for the insured on the application and no questions were asked. Would the courts consider that you waived your rights to say this was not a valid contract? So there's many things to be considered with this particular foreign death claim, and the legal department basically decided how this would be handled. Any questions? I see there's one question.
Yes. So if the claim is non-contestable, is it still questionable?
Yes. A lot of people who engage in insurance fraud are educated about how insurance companies work. They educate themselves on which insurance companies do those fast track claims and try to get those and try to get policies there. So contestability plays a part in it, because it allows you to obtain medical records from doctors prior to the application, and if there was any material misrep in the application, you have another possibility to deny there. But if it's non-contestable, you still need to take the same steps on the foreign claim, because at the end of the day, you're validating whether or not you have, validating whether or not you have a claim that is payable or not. And you're validating that this insured is the right person, this person is dead, and we need to pay this claim or not. So contestability just helps you to have a bit more room to gather more information, but you still need to gather information. So again, I'll say again, set the beneficiary's expectations for how long it will take, just like you would for a contestable claim. We need to do some investigating. We need to obtain some documentation. We may need to get some third parties involved to help us with this. So this may take longer than a normal claim. Because another red flag is a beneficiary who calls and calls and calls and calls and calls and tries to bug you into paying the claim. We set their expectations, you may be able to mitigate that.
So I have a question. So
Okay.
if you have a non-contestable claim and you're in a foreign country, you're still wanting to get medical records for the specific death if they've been there, and just making sure that they're a real person, making sure that they were buried, and that is the part that you're investigating, not necessarily that, oh, they had cancer and they never told us.
Correct. We're not looking at the questions on the application and considering any material misrep if it's non-contestable. If we're asking for medical records because the person had COVID and they went to the hospital, it's to verify, help us substantiate the circumstances of the death and substantiate where the death occurred and that who died as well.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, I guess we'll get done a little bit earlier because I kind of rushed through some of these case studies, but we have numerous case studies. Again, if you want more information, have more specific questions, please feel free to email us. So the challenges we face, the biggest challenges for examinators investigating a foreign death claim are telephone or tele apps, internet applications, because we don't have signatures, the agent didn't see the person, people can fake or route IP addresses and do all kinds of things with the computer fraud. Professional investigators will be needed, and there's a cost associated with that. So that's a challenge. Sometimes if you have a smaller face amount policy, you may not want to spend, or it may cost you more than the face amount of the policy just to hire the investigation service. But so that's a challenge for you. And then you have an examiner who may or may not have a whole lot of experience with foreign death claims, and what to look for and what kind of inconsistencies are, need to be investigated further. So those are challenges that we face. Just on a side note, there's a commercial on TV now that's really popular that talks about there's no shame in asking for help. If you're not sure about the information in front of you, no shame in asking for help. Ask your coworkers to take a look at it, your managers, your reinsurers. That's what we're here for, is to help you get through the process of a foreign death claim. They are challenging, they are difficult because they took place far away, usually, or even close, but in a country where we're not familiar. We may not be familiar with the documentation and whether or not officials there may be corrupt and provide, falsified documents to get a piece of the money that's going to be paid out. And the other challenge is the time it takes to investigate them. You've got to do some type of investigation. You don't want to make hasty decisions. So set your beneficiaries' expectations. Be cautious of squeaky whales, the customer that calls you every day, when you've told them this is going to take some time to pay. Be cautious of those. Those are red flags that maybe something's wrong. Take a deeper dive into it. And gather as much information as possible and do all that you can to verify the authenticity of what you have in front of you.
Okay, we have a couple of claims. We have a couple of questions.
Okay.
On case number 22, would the failure of the insured to be a U.S. citizen be considered material misrep and therefore contestable, or would that not be a consideration as it was beyond the contestable period?
If the claim, I don't remember if this claim was beyond the contestable period, but all applicants must permanently reside in the United States was a requirement. On this, it was disclosed to them on the application. So if contestable, that gives you yet something else to use to, get off the liability for this claim. If it wasn't contestable, it's still all applicants must permanently reside in the United States. If it's not contestable, it's not really a question, it's more of a requirement. So that would be something that, again, we would defer to your legal department. Are you able to assert that because this person didn't permanently reside in the United States, that this is this contract valid with just this statement on the application? We would definitely, refer you to your legal department for consideration, because you need to consider where the beneficiary lives and all of that kind of thing and what laws are in place there. And
I
I'm
was
not a
gonna say,
lawyer.
it would be state by state as well. So I mean, you need
Right.
to have a lawyer that knew
Yeah,
Pennsylvania law if they were in Pennsylvania, or New York law, or
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we defer to legal counsel for these types of questions because we don't know, and especially if it's outside of the contestable period, because when you're trying to uh, assert misrepresentation in an application outside of the contestable period, you are definitely have to prove fraud for it to happen. This on the face of it is, just having admitted to her father never was in the United States appears to be fraud, but that is a question for your legal department for sure.
And then there's another question, and I'm not sure if I understand it. Did Optimum Re pay claims where death occurred in a high-risk country? If so, how many death claims were processed in 2021? I don't know that you would know all this information, but not off the top of your head anyway.
No. Yes, we do pay death claims that occur in high-risk countries. We don't just automatically, say, this happened in Afghanistan, so we're not going through that. We just look at it and we make sure that we keep in mind this is a high-risk country, so that when we are going through it, we're fairly assessing the authenticity of the documents and making good recommendations to our clients if we think an investigator needs to be involved and why. So I don't know the statistics for foreign death claims in high-risk countries off the top of my head in 2021. But yes, we do pay them routinely. Like I said, on all of the foreign death claims across the board, we pay far more than we don't.
It's just to be cautious. And
Yes, and it's the ones, it's like the old saying goes, it's the bad apples that rise to the top of the bunch. Probably the majority of foreign death claims, the person just simply died outside of the country. And it's, some of the files are really sad. You'll see someone who went on vacation in Mexico, was having a good time, and had a heart attack and died. And, their family is devastated. And it's a perfectly legitimate claim. But we do the same type of investigating and reading and verifying that we do for any other claim. So yeah, just because it took place in one of those countries doesn't mean it's fraudulent. It just is something you want to be aware of and you want to take caution.
do you have some examples of some really good things for people that have those $5,000, $10,000 claims that were done in, some things that they can do that, because they're not going to hire, an investigator, because I mean, they're going to be paying way more than the claim is actually worth. So is there some tips and tricks of specific things that they can do that really would help with those small cases?
Yeah, obtaining those documents that I listed on that slide earlier in the presentation, obtaining as many of those documents as you can from the beneficiary definitely helps. Reviewing those documents, take a very detailed review of those documents, make sure the dates are consistent. That's one of the things that when I've seen a foreign death claim that I've questioned, is that the dates seem to be inconsistent. Okay, they died in January, but they weren't buried all the way until July. Why is that? And this was before COVID. So how come? And why did it take so long for this person to file the claim? Or sometimes, the person dies in this country and it'll take months for them to come back. And where was the body that whole time? So, taking a look and making sure that, like on any other claim, things make sense. Doing internet searches to make sure these facilities where the person may have been buried or cremated exist. And doing some research on the customs of the culture of the company, or excuse me, the country where the insured died. How do they take care of their dead? Do they have 10-day long funerals? And that's why it took so long for the person to be buried or brought back home or something like that. Educating yourself. And then of course, make a subject matter expert out of yourself or someone in the department on foreign death claims. Call your reinsurer and ask them, about what can I do or where can I go to get more information. And if you have an investigation company that you use, sometimes you could just give them a call and ask them questions on these smaller dollar amount claims where you don't want to pay them all that money to travel there. They may be able to just, take a look at your file, and because they have more experience with these things, and it'll be a little bit cheaper, or they may be able to just give you, a consultation over the phone. So just a matter of, using the resources that you have at hand for those claims.
Thank you. That helps.
Okay.
Will you go ahead?
Okay. So just to recap, foreign death claims are time consuming and they can be very complicated. Talk to your beneficiaries. I can't say or emphasize that enough. The beneficiary is an excellent source of information. And when they're not being a good source of information, that gives you something to think about. Make sure you have a clear understanding of the circumstances surrounding the death through the documents and the beneficiary. Set their expectations on the time that it's going to take to investigate the claim. Obtain independent verification of the authenticity of the documents that you have via internet searches or consultations with your reinsurer or an investigator. Pay attention to the details. The devil is always in the details. We say that all the time here at Optimum Re. The devil is in the details. Pay attention. Are these dates consistent? Was this person traveling when there was travel restrictions for this particular company? We know nobody was going in or out of China in March of 2020. So if you have a foreign death claim, question that. Getting to know the custom and practices for handling deaths in a foreign country. Hire an investigator if it is cost efficient for you to do so. And take care in your examination of all the facts before you reach a decision. Don't be hasty. So that is all that I have. I appreciate everyone who attended today. It's been really nice. And like I said, if you have any questions that you have for me later, feel free to email us at the Optimum Re inbox. Looks like we have another question now.
Yeah, it just a comment. Death claim in a foreign country is expensive to investigate. Best to underwrite a file well to prevent the fraudulent death claim in the first place.
Absolutely.
Very true. Very, very true.
I agree. Do your best. You want it, if you're loose up front, it makes it difficult on the back end. If you tighten up a little bit on the front, we can tighten up on the back end, because claims, we really have our hands tied on some of these things. We have time constraints and state statutes that apply to a claim. So we have to be cognizant of all of those things. So yeah, I 100% agree. And thank you for the comment. We appreciate underwriter support.
Yeah, Michelle's my bud. You gotta talk to each other. Claims has to talk to underwriting. Underwriting has to talk to claims. Will you unshare your screen, ma'am?
I sure will.
All right. So thank you very much for attending, everyone. There is a survey that is coming shortly afterwards. Okay, hold on. I'm supposed to share both of us.
Oh.
All right, there it is. Okay, so thank you very much. Please, again, be gentle. It's new for me. It's new for Michelle. She did an awesome job. Me, yeah, so.
Great.
I do have a couple of things to mention. We have some upcoming webinars and seminars. In September 20th, there's going to be a virtual webinar with on juvenile underwriting presented by Dr. J. That's more of an underwriting webinar. On November 6th through the 8th is going to be our live and in-person seminar again here in Dallas. So make sure, if you didn't get to save the date, the registration is going to come out shortly. But if you didn't get a save the date, let us know at the info us at optimumre.com, and we'll definitely send you out registration. And then Monica Klink is going to do another contestable claims investigation webinar in November. And then they have a whole series next year as well. So, keep up to date with this and They do an awesome job. It's always fun for underwriters to hear like, oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I should do that better. Maybe I should do that differently. So please stay out for that. And then let's see, there was, I don't know if people are saying thank you or thank you, Michelle. Oh, have you ever come across a death claim, a foreign death claim where the claim documentation sent in was funeral expenses for burial, but later on to find that the insured was cremated?
Personally, no. I don't think I've ever even heard of where we found that happen in a claim. It wouldn't be something that would surprise me. That would be something that would make me start digging a lot into, you know, what took place. And if I was at the direct writer, I definitely would be on the phone with the beneficiary or some family members trying to figure out what happened. That would, yeah, that would almost warrant, you need to do an investigation to find out what really took place.
What's going on here, people?
Mhm.
Again, thank you very much, Michelle. Awesome job. Awesome job. Thank you
Thank you,
very
Jill.
much.
Thank you. Awesome
Thanks,
job being
guys.
my co-host. I appreciate you. Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.